All right, 1 second here. Oops. Okay, welcome everyone to this Q&A. Dan, want to welcome everyone to this Q&A. One thing I want to comment on, see how far this goes, and that is there was a New York Times article recently, basically demolishing the Hasidic community because of their lack, let's say, of secular studies, or the fact that, the yeshivas, have very little, if not no secular studies, by a certain age. So, I want to discuss whatever, just a little bit there, where they're coming from, or let's say better, where yeshiva schools are coming from, what the secular media, is going to say, and all that, and see, we'll see where this goes. So, one thing that, when kids are younger, certainly girls' schools get more of it, no question, definitely no question about it. But when boys are younger, so they'll get some, let's say, they'll learn English, grammar, a little bit. They'll learn basic math, depending on what type of schools. They may have also, let's say, a class in science, in the afternoon. But the main focus on any of these schools, in yeshivas in general, is going to be on Jewish topics, i.e. Torah. That's what it's going to be, whether it's Chumash, whether it's Mishnah, whether it's Talmud. I mean, that most of the day, most yeshivas, that's what they're going to focus on. And it takes hours. I think people don't really understand, how long it takes over here, to learn. You just say, wow, they're learning, not to mention the fact they don't respect it, right? That's a whole other issue, is the fact that, why they're learning these, ancient texts. Let them learn something like more serious, like sociology, or history, right? Now, I'm not saying history in general, person shouldn't know certain aspects of history, but, whatever it is that going to be the focus of a Jewish school, of a yeshiva? Certainly not, right? It's going to be about Jewish law. It's going to be halacha. It's going to be about chumash. It's going to be, well, probably not much, when they're older, they're not going to learn chumash so much, but whatever. It's going to be in Jewish law, Jewish philosophy, a little bit they'll get. But the main thing they're going to learn is Gemara. That's what they're going to learn, because that's the base of all Jewish law. That's where it comes from, right? Now, we're not going to go into how they derive it, what the rabbis say, and, we're not going to bash the Karaites here, which we could, but we're not going to do that, right? The point is, the main focus of the day is based on learning Gemara, which is not an easy thing. Anyone who's ever tried it, right? I remember, years ago when I was learning full time, 8, 9, 10 hours a day, people would say, yeah, come on, why don't you do something real? I said, yeah, when I was in university, at an Ivy League university, you could have like a grueling schedule, 2 days, 2 mornings, 2 afternoons a week. This is the base of all what Judaism is, right? Where all the laws come from, right? Derived from the Torah. So it takes a while to learn and not easy to master, certainly not at all, right? But again, what's the problem? The problem is it's not respected, right? It's totally not respected. Now you say, oh, they're sitting hours and hours, learning these texts. Yeah, not so easy to learn. It takes, they start learning Gemara at the age of 11. or they start at the age of 10. They were in Mishnah before that. They start learning Gemara. It takes a lot of time. So after their bar mitzvah, they spend, most of their day. That's what they do. They learn with a study partner, right? They have a class. They have, they'll have, they'll spend most of the day. That's what they do. That's what they do. Now, so past a certain age, in some places, again, they'll have basic math. They'll have basic English, right? Let's say we're talking about in the States, right? So they have basic grammar, etc. By the time, they're, 12, 13, I think probably 12, 13, that's it, that stops, right? And that's not going to continue. So if let's say they want to go to university later, okay, they have to take, they have to get an equivalent, if they have a, if the yeshiva counts as, having an equivalent of a GED, right, of a high school, education. If not, okay, so they'll prep for it. It's not the end of the world, to make up time, whatever it is. The more modern yeshivas, okay, so they'll spend half a day learning Torah subjects, and the other half they'll learn, they'll learn math, they'll learn science, they'll learn, higher mathematics, this and that. If you take it seriously, you don't need college preparatory classes. Now, some places that I've seen, kids goof around this and that, they're not going to pass, right? Now, it's not a question, not a problem necessarily with the school. It's a problem with the kid. They wanted to, they took it seriously, right? In these more modern places, then they'll pass, and they should pass, right? If that's the case. But that being, you have to understand in these type of places, right? So you're going to have half-day learning Torah, okay, right? That is worth something, no question, right? They'll have that, but at the same time, what's their main focus, right? Now, it's a kind of scary thing to say, but what's their main focus? Secular studies, that's their main focus. Because parents are more interested to get, quality secular education so the kids can go to good universities. Now, just on that topic for a second, the parents of these students, so let's say they send their kids to an Ivy League school, might not be a bad thing. It's going to cost a lot of money, but, that'll be forgiven, maybe, in the future. Regardless, parents will say, I'm glad my kid went to an Ivy League school, went to a top university, right? But they didn't come out the same as they went in. Now, most parents are going to say that they didn't come out more religious because of the secular environment, right? That's what happens. That's essentially what happens. So there's a price. There's a price they'll pay. Okay, but again, they're learning Torah subjects, as well, part of the day, good part of the day. But there is a very strong emphasis on secular studies, very strong emphasis, because they want their kids to go to college, to go to university. Now, by ultra-Orthodox yeshivas, their goal is not to send kids to university. That's not their goal. Now, you'll tell me, but they're not going to be prepared. Let's say the kid wants to go anyway. Let's say. So he decides, okay, 18, 19, whatever it is, however old the person is, they decide, okay, I want to go to university. So they got to get equivalent of a GED, to get a high school, diploma. They're going to have to, learn a whole bunch of new things. They'll take preparatory classes, okay? Right? They may have to do that. Probably have to do that. Let me ask a question. Right? So let's get to the other side. The other side, they're going to say, beyond the shadow of a doubt, of course they have to be better educated, right? How in the world they're going to function in the world? How can they function in the world? They don't know about art history. You're going to say, come on, it's more basic than that. They don't know basic math. Okay, so if you go higher than basic math, unless you're going into engineering or other things, what is the person going to do with calculus? In general, not very much. Guaranteed not very much. Or, trigonometry. Okay, they can figure certain things out. They'll know how many miles per gallon when they get gas. right? I remember I was teaching math in a yeshiva, right, many years ago. So I said, come on, this is not an algebraic equation. I said, tell me how to do it. Tell me how to figure out how many miles per gallon. Right? These are high school kids. Couldn't tell me. So I said, I'm going to show you an algebraic equation. This is how you figure it out. Right? They can say, okay, comes in handy. Right? You go to a store. You go to a store and there's something on sale. Right? You get 3 for 2. Right? You're gonna get an extra thing free. Okay. Question is, if I buy it separately, does it cost more? If I buy it like this, another algebraic equation. Good. Right? But they're going to say, the other side's going to say very strongly, come on, they're learning not even basic math. They're learning, they couldn't even tell you about grammar. Maybe they don't even read good in English. Okay. So maybe it's something they have to work on. Maybe. But a lot of these people, when they grow up, in the Hasidic community, they do very well in business. A lot of them do very well in business without a degree. Now, people will swear and they'll say, how can they hire somebody? They don't have a college degree. There is something to that. And if they would have a choice between someone who's got a college degree and someone who doesn't, most likely who they're going to take, someone's got a college degree. For better or for worse, that's probably what they're going to do. But what does it really mean? And especially, let's say someone goes to university, like I did, and you study liberal arts. So I have a degree in history. What can you do with that? What can you do with a degree in political science? What can you do with most degrees, undergraduate degrees? 0. You have to go further. You got to get a master's, right? Maybe there are certain degrees a person could get that, straight away without a master's, they start in their field, this and that. But if you're in liberal arts, you're in trouble. Because they get a history degree, you go to law school, or political science, similar thing, right? But most people have a liberal arts degree, not using it. They'll take, let's say 4 semesters of a social science. They might have to take 4 semesters, of a science, and it can be very creative if you're not scientifically inclined. How to get out of that. If you're not going to take biology, chemistry, or any of these other things, or any math classes, right? It's going to be a little bit creative, right? How are you going to do that? But okay. So most of the classes that a person's going to get a degree in are useless. You're not going to use them. Now, my degree in history from an Ivy League institution came in handy once. Came in handy for something. Okay. Came in handy. Not gonna say not. Yeah, but in the bigger scheme of things, does it make someone better? More, they know how to think better because they've been in university, basically been spoon-fed, not really taught how to think. Right? If a person learns in yeshiva years in, for many, many years, you're taught how to analyze. You're taught picayune details between commentaries. They say the exact same thing except a few words. One adds a few words, one doesn't. Major difference. Why did he say this and the other one didn't? So they know how to analyze. They're not sitting there just wasting time. They're learning these they're learning these old ancient texts, which they are, that's true. Yeah, but they're also learning about life, how to live life, how to derive Jewish law. Are they all going to stay in learning forever? No. Vast majority not. Right? Certainly in the Hasidic world, maybe if they get married, they'll learn a couple years, maybe, and then they'll go out to work. Now, if they decide to go out to work, what are they going to do? If a person goes in the diamond business, they need a degree? No. They want to go into graphics, they need a degree? No. They have to take a course. They don't need a degree for that. There are many things a person can do. You don't need a degree. Plenty. Now, what's the problem over here? Forget they don't respect the learning. That's for sure. Right? I can't even tell you how many people told me, what a waste of life. What a waste of life learning. Jews talking, not non-Jews. What a waste spending all this time learning these ancient words, whatever. Someone was in my house once. They saw all these books. Got a couple thousand more books in my house. So I saw all these books. Someone made a comment. Secular Jew makes a comment. And they say, no one can learn all this. Well, there are great rabbis that, know everything about everything. But okay, no one can learn all this. Way too much information. Not possible. Yeah, you know my answer was? If you'd walk into a lawyer's office and you saw 3, 4 bookcases full of books, are you going to say, nobody can learn this? We go to a doctor's office, they got all these books, all these medical books. Is anyone going to make such a comment? Of course not. Why are they going to make such a comment? I'll tell you. Because they respect their knowledge. They've been in law school for 4 years, or more, 3 years, 4 years. Been in medical school 7 years. They respect the knowledge. Forget about they don't want to pay the price, what it costs, go to a doctor, go to a lawyer, okay? But they respect the knowledge. So I can say I got 20,000, 2,000 books, 2,500 books. Maybe it means I have a PhD in Judaism. Why isn't that respected? Why don't secular Jews respect that? Because you're not making money from it. Because it's not a real thing. Got to do something real out there. Crunch numbers, be an accountant, that's real. Write a book on tax law, that's real. Do other things that are meaningless in the world. You need people like that. I'm not saying not. You need doctors, you need lawyers, right? Right? You're going to have accountants, other fields, whatever it is. I'm not going to say you don't need them. But see, if you look at the beginning, Pirkei Avos, what does it say at the beginning of Ethics of Our Fathers? It says the world stands on 3 things: Torah, Avodah, and Gibus Chasodim. The world stands on Torah. Avodah means either prayer, or it can mean bringing sacrifices in the temple, right? Temple sacrifices, or chesed, acts of loving kindness. Now, go explain to a secular Jew or a non-Jew that if it wouldn't be for people sitting and learning, the world goes back to the original chaos, Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. That would be bad. That might be good for some people. You won't have to listen to me. Okay, so that would be bad. The world goes back to chaos. We wouldn't be here. But then we're going to say, come on, prove it. Prove that you're learning to stop holding the world. Now you have to show there is a God, how he's in charge of the world, what he does, why the Torah is true. Okay, take time. It'll take time. Are accountants holding up the world? Doctors, you can say, saving lives. Okay. Not going to say not. But a lot of things out there that people do, I don't, okay, they're making money from it. Doesn't necessarily mean they're holding up the world. I mean, you need people to do all kinds of things. True. And a lot of things that they do, you don't need a degree for. 100% you don't need a degree for. There are things you do, okay? Person wants to be a doctor, you want to be a dentist, you want to be a podiatrist, you want to go into computer science, different things. They need a degree for these things. Other things, maybe as well. But the vast majority of things that people do, you don't need a degree for. You need to learn how to do it. You need to apprentice. If I was involved in real estate many years ago. So I learned how to find undervalued properties. I learned under someone, right? How to do it. Did I need a degree for that? Didn't need a degree for that. And certainly doing advertising, I didn't need a degree for that either, right? It's like the uglier the sign, the better. It was very simple. It's 1, 2, 3. So let's go back to what the claim is. They're going to claim, right? They're going to claim they're not getting basic education. I don't know. They're being taught about life, what life is all about. Musar, about ethics. They're learning how to derive Jewish law, spending hours learning. Doesn't mean they're going to be learning forever. But what's the problem? First of all, they don't respect it. They say, you're going to have a higher level education. When it comes to speaking English, there are plenty of people who barely speak English, make good living. Whether it's in real estate, diamonds, graphic, computers, other things. And their English is pretty bad. Come in contact with a number of people like that. Their English might be pretty bad. Okay. So what? If you tell me they're living below the poverty line, they're struggling, and all these people, and you get statistics up the gazoo like that in this community, okay, then we'll talk. That's not the case. That's not the case. So they want to ram their agenda down our throats. That's what they want to do. And they want to say, come on, you're not holding up the part. Now, what's the bigger problem? What's the bigger problem? So there's a statement we say here in Israel, say in other places also, Balamea Baladeya. Meaning, the one who has 100, he's the one that talks. He's the one that people listen to. Right? So they're going to complain, and they're going to say they're funneling a lot of money to these yeshivas because they're eligible for certain programs, whatever it is. And we'll speak about that in a second. So they're saying that, so, we're funding all this money, government money. Why in the world, should their ability to do higher level math be non-existent? Why should their, English grammar or ability to speak English better, why should that be so bad? What are we funneling all this money for? So now I would say they got a point. These are private schools. They have to raise a lot of money also. Right, tuition is very high as well. Right, but they have to raise money because most of these places are in the red anyway. So they have to raise it, no question. So good, they got government help. What's the problem? What's the problem with getting government help? If you qualify for programs that's not made up, they're not lying, and all that. Okay, so they qualify. They qualify. The government gives them help. Very good. Right? What's the problem? The problem is they're the ones calling the shots. The one who gives money and say, hey, we want to see results. We want to see these other results. So there's a problem. There's a fundamental problem. When you take money from secular places, they could, in your religious institutions, they could dictate policy, right? They 100% could dictate policy. That's a problem. And here also is a problem. There are a lot of places here in Israel take money from the government. And now people are jumping up and down. A number of years ago, because the government wanted to say, we want more secular studies. We want to teach about evolution. We want to teach about same-sex marriages, problems they had in England as well. Right? So that's a problem. So I remember my Rabbi should be their institutions, they don't take money from the government. So they have to raise all their money. I mean, they get tuition. Doesn't cover a lot, but they're going to raise the money because they don't want the government saying boo. Right? Someone here points out that's why Christian schools don't take government money. They don't want government to teach them. Tell them what to teach. Beautiful. 100%. Problem is over here, they qualify. And the government's going to say, well, we give you so much money. We give you a heck of a lot of money. We want you to have better, we want you to teach English better. We want them to speak English better. We want them to do higher level math. Yeah, but the Shivas say, we don't want that. We want to keep to what we're doing. That's what we do. This is what we've been doing for generations, for centuries. This is what we've been teaching. We're gonna change our curriculum in Volozhin. One of the reasons the famous Volozhin yeshiva, which is what we call the father of all yeshivas, because today we learn according to that system of Chaim Volozhin, famous student of the Vilna Gaon, of Elijah Vilna more than 250 years ago. So when the Netziv of Naftali Tzvi Berliner was head of the yeshiva, the Russian government wanted them to spend an hour a day teaching Russian. They wanted to enforce that the yeshiva, that the boys there would learn Russian. They'd be able to speak Russian. So at that point, the Netziv said it's not going to stop there. Then they're going to want something else to teach. They're going to want another thing. I mean, it's not like they were funding the schools either, but okay, they can enforce whatever they want, right? If you live in a communist country, you do what you want. So the Netziv over here, he shut it down. That was one of the reasons, one of the main reasons, right? They shut it down. They don't want government interference. They don't want the government dictating what they can teach, what they can't teach. Even if they don't take money from them, they have the right to enforce it. So they basically said, okay, we're not doing that. So they shut it down. Totally shut it down. So Agudas Yisrael of America, they're fighting this tooth and nail. They don't want them to dictate policy. They don't want them to dictate what they're allowed to teach, what they're not allowed to teach. Right? So it's a huge thing. It's a huge issue. But you see, the slant is going to be so that's an important factor, and that is that they're the ones funding or helping funding. They got what to say, whether it's right or wrong doesn't matter. They have right. They have what to say. Right. Similarly, when it comes to running yeshivas and you have big donors, right? And you got people that give a lot of money, etc. The heads of the yeshiva, they're going to take what they say seriously about curriculum and this and that. No, they're not going to have what to say at all. They want to help support the yeshiva. It's beautiful. You want to change the curriculum? Go elsewhere. Right? They're not going to take what they say seriously. They're going to say, you want to get money? Good. We need help. You don't want to get money? Okay. But you're not going to dictate what we do. See, that's the problem. Someone with a rabbi of a synagogue, you got the board of directors telling them what to say, what not to say. Right? The rabbi's got to walk like a tightrope unless he's got, being paid elsewhere, making money elsewhere. Why? Because they're going to call the shots. Say, oh, you can't say this, you can't say that, and the job's on the line. Job might be on the line over here. So, someone there pointed out, so this is a very scary thing. Because if you're going to take money, from the government, guess what? The government can have a right to say what they want. Not saying you necessarily have to listen, right? But if they're gonna enforce things and say you got to do it, it's this way or no way, then that's going to be a serious problem. So somewhere pointed out, that's why Christian schools don't take money. Very good. Right? So I would say the same thing. I would say the exact same thing. That, they're so worried about this. And the government now is going to clamp down. And they're going to say, okay, if you don't do this, we're going to withdraw funding here. There's a lot of Jewish money in the world. There's a lot of Jewish money in the world. So you're getting helped, by non-Jews over here, by the government. Again, if they qualify, we're not saying it's all made up over here, if they properly qualify, okay? But see, taking money comes with a price. And the price of taking money is they're going to say what they want. 100%. They're going to say, well, we're giving all this money, how come, these kids barely speak English? Because they don't need English in general. Is it better? They should be a little more polished, could be. But guess what? There are plenty of people, plenty of Hasidic people making a lot of money without an education. Without any education, secular education. Now, they needed things written up and this and that. Their English is not good enough. Guess what? They'll hire someone. They'll hire someone to do it. So that's so bad. No, they should know how to do it themselves. Yeah, but if they're in charge of the company, they can't always do it. They take certain things they do, whatever, but maybe not going to have time to do it. So get someone to do it. Get someone to do it. That's the end of the world. No, they specifically should know how to read and write English. Okay. To what level? What, so they can read Dostoevsky? They can read a bunch of these crummy writers that give all their garbage out, and you have to sit there and, I had to read this. In top class, I had to read this stuff. James Joyce, Hemingway, all these different things. I hated reading when I was younger. Never read for fun until I was 20. Imagine a history major. Had to read all this stuff in history. That I enjoyed. To a certain extent. Other stuff couldn't be bothered. Read all kinds of things, right? Quote unquote classics. Okay, classics according to who? Remember ninth grade reading Beowulf. Couldn't read Beowulf without footnotes. That was like archaic English. Boy, I'm so glad I remember that. So glad I read that. Come on. There's an agenda. I want you to be more well-rounded, right? So, okay, with all the well-roundedness that I have and all the garbage that's in my head, how much does that really help in the long run? Did it help me work on character traits? Did it teach me, having a personal connection to God and how that works? Did it teach me about morality? Oh, a lot of the stuff totally immoral. Totally immoral. Goes against everything written in Torah. No, it's a classic. Scarlet Letter, Hester Prynne, classic work. Oh, what is the main topic in the book? Adultery. Gee, that's good for Torah. I mean, the list goes on. I'm not gonna bring all the garbage books that I read or classics, so to speak. We're gonna say, look, let's analyze what's going on in the book, even the cliff notes, just to know, what's going on. Forget about deeper symbolism and other things. Right? Most of the topics are probably 100% forbidden to Jews to read. Probably most of them, not all of them. So what's the benefit? Oh, it's a classic. Not in our book. Right? So we're going to have people read classic book about adultery. Right? Adultery, Torah prohibition. 100% Torah prohibition. Adultery, death penalty. Sreifa. If there was a temple today. Means you get molten lead thrown down your throat if there was a temple today. Oh, it's pretty bad. No, but it's a classic work. Hester Prynne, come on. Did anyone read the Scarlet Letter? I don't even know why I remember that. Whatever. So yeah, all that wasted time. Imagine if I would have been learning Gemara then. Imagine if I would have been focused on Torah. Imagine where I'd be today. Instead of people saying, hey, YouTube rabbi. Whatever. You don't learn about Musar. You don't learn about ethics. You don't learn about being a better person. You don't learn about morality. So you can say, well, if a person wanted a degree, fine. You don't have to go. You don't have to go on campus. Plenty of problems with that. So you do it online. That depends what you need. Depends what's needed to be done. I have a friend of mine. I'll tell a story. I have a friend of mine that I grew up with that his parents owned liquor store, a couple of liquor stores. And he was going into the business. He was going to go in the business. So what happened? So they wanted him to get a degree. So he got a degree. He went to a business school. Business school in Boston, Suffolk University. Anyone who's ever heard of it. Anyway, it's a business school. So I asked this friend of mine years ago, when he went into the liquor business, how many courses? 4 years. 4 years he was there. So I asked him point blank, how many courses did you take that helped you in business? Now think about it. You take, 3 classes a semester, maybe 4 classes a semester. That's a lot. Right? So let's say, however many credits he had to get. 100 credits, 115 credits. So I asked him, how many classes, how many courses actually helped you? And he said 2. So think about it. You take 50 courses. Let's do the math. It's less than 5%. It's 2.5%, 2%, let's say. 2% of those courses that they forked over a ton of money that didn't even help them in business. 2 classes in business. So now you're going to tell me what a secular education is worth? They have an agenda. I get it. They have an agenda. They want to, certainly want to make us look bad, no question about it, right? But if you take a survey, if you were to take a survey of all these kids, that came out of yeshiva, came out of Hasidic schools, and what they're doing, and where they're holding financial, there's going to be a very, very high percentage of those who had no, at barely a secular education that are doing incredibly well. You don't need it in real estate. You don't need it in diamonds. Plenty of things you don't need it. Okay. So they're going to brainwash you and tell you, and everyone will tell you, you need a secular education. For what? Talk about art history, which you're never going to remember. I can't even listen to Mozart today for that reason. I had to memorize. I took music appreciation. Sorry, not Mozart. Beethoven's Fifth. I know all the ups and the downs and this and the that. Okay, I'm sure, that helped me somewhere in life. Can't say. They say, fine, you got a liberal arts degree. Okay. Right? Other degrees are not, I don't think are worth that much more. But they have an agenda. Their agenda is to say what they're doing is not worth anything. Right? They have to be able to speak English properly. Okay, so I would think, this is me, my opinion, for what it's worth. Is it better they speak English more, properly? Know a little bit of grammar? Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I think it'd be a good thing. Obligation? I don't know if the obligation doesn't hurt them in business. I don't think it's a turnoff in business. You got plenty of people in America don't speak English well. English not their first language. They get by. They want to say they have to have such a level of English. It'll be better. Maybe they could accomplish a little bit more. Okay. But you're going to tell me it's going to take time from learning Torah to do it? That's a different issue. You're right. And those type of subjects should be the majority of a school that goes against your values? No, that's never going to happen. They'll shut down the schools first. Because this system has worked for the last, 400 or 500 years more. System has worked. They're not going to change it. You know what they say? If it's not broken, you don't fix it. But they have an agenda. It's not just, we'd like them to speak English more, be a little more well-rounded. No, that's not their agenda. Part of their agenda, right? Their agenda is they want this other stuff being taught also. Where does it stop? In England, they had a real problem a number of years ago. They wanted to teach, about gender issues in yeshivas, right? Which is obviously forbidden. Yeah, the, quote unquote, chief rabbi saying, yeah, it's not a problem, right? We have no issue with this. Nobody holds a chief rabbi there, but that's another issue we're not necessarily going to get into now. But you see, they didn't ram it down the throat to the Muslims that they have to, teach about same-sex marriages and all that. Why not? Because they would have burnt the city to the ground. That's what they would have done. They would have protested, started killing people, all kinds of things. For them, that's going against religion. You go against our religion, we're going to kill every single one of you. We don't care. They have no value for life, right? They don't care. That's not going to change. You think they did that? For Muslims? Oh, no. They wouldn't even bridge the subject. By Jews, different issue. We don't fight with anyone. We try not to fight with anyone. We just want to be left alone. Okay, you want to make an issue, then we have to fight back over here. There are things we're not going to do. There's a limit. There's a limit over here. How can you teach something that the Torah says is an abomination? And the school's going to say, well, do it or shut down. Shut down. That's what you do. That's what you have to do. You have to be willing to do that. Because you're talking about teaching the next generation. You can't teach something that the Torah says is abominations. Okay. Public school, they do whatever they want. There's an agenda. There's an absolute agenda. By us, you'll say there's also an agenda, right? You'll say there's also an agenda. What's the agenda? Torah, mitzvahs, ethics. That's the agenda. Anything that's going to go against that, throw it out. You don't want it. Now you're going to say, but this isn't so bad. They're only claiming they want them to read and write a little bit better, a little bit higher mathematics. But what did the Netziv say? The Netziv said it doesn't stop. They only want to teach Russian language. What's the big deal? So in yeshivas, let them teach Spanish, so they learn Spanish a little bit. Okay? Is that the end of the world? It doesn't stop there. That's where it starts. That's where it starts. So if that's where it starts, you don't know where it's going to go. So I would say there are two things here. One thing is we're not going to change our curriculum. And not only that, we don't need to. Because we are, people are being produced to be successful in the secular world based on little or no education in the secular world. They learn. People have unbelievable acumen for business. There are people like that. Come and contact. My wife does digital marketing, Facebook ads, Google ads, etc. Come in contact with a number of people. Their English was pretty bad. I'm not going to say not. Their English was pretty bad. But guess what? They're making a ton of money what they're doing. Whatever their field is, they're making a lot of money. Right? It wasn't just one person say, oh, it's a fluke of nature. Right? It's a fluke over here. You got lucky. This one, Hasidic guy who barely speaks English, is making good money. No. This happens all the time. All the time. It's not just one. It's like 2, 3, 4, 5, 8. It's uncanny. What does it show? Either they're the luckiest people in the world, right? One option, or there's something about their education that helps them. And we mentioned earlier, when you're sitting down analyzing texts for hours upon hours, and you don't daydream and you're not doodling and this and that, a person goes in the workforce, you think the work they're going to do is harder than that? I remember after first learning how to learn, my first year I was in yeshiva. I came back, and I'm talking about an Ivy League school. When I came back at top university, when I came back, I took certain courses. It was a joke compared to what I was learning. Right? Again, I'm not saying all courses are so easy and this and that. You have to look at it from a certain perspective. If you're being taught, how to look at details, how to put them together, how to analyze, right? And you're doing that on a regular basis, and your brain is about to pop out of your head because, you're trying to keep a lot of information in your head, trying to put things together. No offense, a course in history is not going to be that difficult compared to this. Yeah, there's information. You got to remember names and dates and put things together, and right. But you think that analysis is going to be anywhere comparable to this? It's going to be so much more difficult. I'm not going to say you don't have to work at it. I'm not going to say, oh, it's just you're going to stroll in the park, whatever. But you're not comparing it. There's no comparison. No comparison. I know someone, that I went to university with claimed that, when he learned Talmud, the very little that he learned, right? He claimed it helped him, when he was in law school, helped him how to analyze, how to look at things in many different ways. That's what rabbis have to do. You can have certain things in front of you, right? You have to put it together, right? It's like a puzzle. You got to try and put it together, but you have to hold a lot of information, a lot of different things on one hand. That's not so easy, right? And you got to analyze it. Does this make sense according to this one and that one? What about Jewish law? How does it fit? Where's the person holding? There are a lot of different factors, going on. So this other stuff, okay, a lot of it is formulas, it comes to math and understanding how they work and, this and that. But a lot of this other stuff, if a person's learned, for years, this stuff is not going to be that hard. I'll give another example. Rabbi of mine, brilliant psychologist as well. He helped develop many years ago, he and a group of people helped develop plastic bottles before plastic bottles came out. And he told me that he would be with other Jews, non-Jews, and he was already used to sitting in one place for hours on end. And he said for people, even brilliant people, they'd get up, they'd get a cup of coffee, they had to, have a smoke, they had to take a break. It was too intense, to sit there and try and analyze and this and that, whatever, put the pieces of the puzzle together. It was hard, but someone who's used to doing it, now you apply it to other things. You apply that knowledge or that analysis to other things. That's a whole different thing. Not going to be so hard to do in general. Not saying you don't have to work hard, still have to work hard, right? But you already have the base. You're already way ahead of the game because you learned how to analyze. You learned how to think things out. You learn how to think out of the box, so to speak. I remember once, I remember once an argument. Talmud brings an argument, many, many arguments. So I remember, asking one of my rabbis, I don't get it. This side of the argument makes perfect sense. Perfect sense in many ways. This side of the argument, I don't hear it. I just, I don't hear it. And this wasn't something that was like not something tangible. Talking about, in the laws of money, in damages, and all that. So the answer I got was, you're the other guy. You're the other guy doesn't make sense. Tell me why. Tell me why his thing makes sense. Right? It's kind of like a debate. You take two sides. Right? You can't take two sides. You got two sides in a debate. Right? So you have your side you're trying to prove, even if you don't think you have a leg to stand on. You have to bring proof. You have to show why you think this is true. And you have to go there and prove it. So you know what? Even if you don't think you have a leg to stand on, you're going to work very hard to try and prove it, even if it's coming stuff out of the air, because you're going to have to think out of the box. You're going to have to think in different ways than you normally think, right? So when you look and analyze the problem, you have to look at it from a lot of. I spoke about this Pirkei Avos last Saturday, right? When you look at something, right? You look at something. As the Mishnah says, you have to know the proper way to which a person should go, which a person should cling to. So we mentioned there that you have to think carefully, deeply, proper way a person should do something, but when you make a decision, or before you make a decision, you have to analyze it from many different angles. Many, many different angles. Right? So imagine you're doing something, whatever it is over here. And now you got something in front of you. You got to look at it. Okay, maybe I'll try like this. Nope, that doesn't work. Oh, because this. So whatever. Okay, rip that up. Try this. Try that. You got to look at things in many different ways. Many different ways. But if you want to analyze something properly, right? Let's say again, when we're talking about Talmud here, and you're looking at another opinion, you have to see, why is that opinion the way it is? Why did the person make such a statement, right? So my answer a lot of times was, I don't know, but it doesn't make sense. It's wrong. It just doesn't, but you have to articulate. You got to say why, and the details could be very picky. And I was learning something earlier today, that there was a difference of opinion whether the custom of a certain thing was only in a certain place, or the statement was that the custom is like this and like this. In other words, across the board, anywhere the custom is going to be like this. Well, the problem was, in certain places, the custom was not like that. So unless you have a different version and you say it was only in their place, which someone brought up, there was a different version over here, okay, right? They say it's only in his place, but if you have the other version that says, in general, this is the way the custom was, but in other places it wasn't, and you have a contradiction, what do? There's a problem. Either it is that way or it's not that way. So then you have different commentators saying different things, trying to explain. Well, why did this one say like this? Why did the other one say like that? Are there any ramifications according to Jewish law? Right? They're going to say, wow, it's kind of picky and detailed, right? Right. Maybe according to Jewish law, there is, there were a number of ramifications, because either the custom's like this or it's not. If it's not like that, then it's like the other one. Right. So there are ramifications. There are definitely ramifications. And now you're gonna analyze. But you have to think, two people are arguing, etc. First of all, you have to understand what they're arguing about. But then you have to understand each one in their own merits. Why does this one say like this? What's behind what he says? Defend what he says. That's how I learned how to learn. Defend why he says what he says. Now defend what the other person says. Now see why they disagree. So then a person does that, you're going to hit a lot of the questions. A lot of the questions, the great early commentators ask, later commentators ask. So what's going on over here? In short, go see a bunch of questions here. The point is that there are a few things. One is One is that the claim that this education and the system, the way it's set up, is hurting the students, totally false. Now, there might be people that are disgruntled, like they say in the article, former yeshiva students that pretty much went off, and they'll say, yeah, I wish this would have happened, or that would have happened, or whatever the case is. They're disgruntled. So that, and they have anonymous sources also. But these people are disgruntled because they got burned by the system. Now, is it possible in some ways maybe they get burned by the system? Could be. Could be. The vast majority, though, are not. So they have this strong based education. Whether they speak English good enough or not, irrelevant, because a lot of them are making good money, whatever they do. And if they want to go, and they want to do something else and they need a degree, okay. So they'll have to take courses. 100%, they'll have to take courses, get up to snuff and do it. But it can be done because these things are not as hard. I know a number of people, when they stopped learning and they wanted to get either a degree or whatever it was, they aced so many things. They did things at the highest level, without even knowing that much, based in the secular world. Why? Because this way of learning makes a person 10 times stronger. 10 times stronger. You taught how to think, how to analyze. They don't look at it that way. Oh, they're just wasting time learning all these archaic laws. They ever saw what it was, what it really was. They wouldn't open up their mouths. I mean, maybe they would. They're anti-Semites, but it doesn't matter. They have no idea how it works. And so I've come from both worlds. So seeing the world of how to analyze and this and that, coming back to the secular world at quote unquote at an Ivy League school. Come on, where are the people bowing here? Ivy League school, top school for education in America. It was a joke. It was a joke taking these other classes that I had to take to finish. Compared to analyzing some of the commentaries, come on. It was like a walk in the park. That's what it was. I'm not saying we studied, could have got better grades. Okay, whatever. Right? I was just lazy. Right? Well, it wasn't a question of all the material so difficult, and this and that. Once you're taught how to think a certain way, and it's good. A little bit of brainwashing is always good. So when you're taught how to think and analyze in a certain way, right? We have such an advantage over the rest of the world. There's no question about it. Right? Someone's grown up in that system. Now, could someone, if they have learning disabilities, other things, going to hurt them? True. That might be the case. But that system that is set up, so even if they don't speak English as well, and they speak like this, and they speak like, whatever, like English isn't their first language, guess what? They get the job done. They get the job done, whether they have a degree or not. And then they won't acknowledge it. And the whole secular world with their agenda will never acknowledge this. They'll say this guy you're listening to, me, is an absolute fruitcake, right? He's got an axe to grind because of all the time he wastes in university. Could be, right? Could be, right? It's more than an axe to grind. They're telling you, the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars that a person's gonna spend. The parents are going to spend, you're going to take out loans, whatever the case is, to get a degree. Most of the classes you're going to take for that degree are worthless, totally worthless. Not going to help you in any way. So you could have already, a couple years, learned under someone, been an apprentice, this, that, gone out and done what you wanted to do. And, and eventually a person be successful that way. And so many people like that, I'm telling you. Tons of people like that, but everyone will tell you, can I have a degree? And there'll be bias that say, if you have a degree and I don't have a degree, they're going to choose the other person first. Okay. Right. But there are plenty of people successful without a degree. You can take a course, maybe take a couple years, et cetera. Some things you need a degree for. Okay. Not going to say not. When going to architecture, you probably need a degree. Right. A person wants to do, let's say, art therapy, you have to have a degree. And they have to go on to get a master's. Okay. Right. So there's some things you have to do. There are many things you don't. And what's the difference if my English grammar, English grammar is so much better or it's not better, right? Or I took calculus or I didn't take calculus. You think calculus matters today? For what most people do? Absolutely zero. Zero. What does it help me for? Algebra maybe help a little bit, right? Figure out how many miles to the gallon or kilometers, the liters to the kilometer, whatever it is, right? That you're going to get. Yeah, that's a mathematical formula. But I don't even need math for that. It's very easy. How many miles did you go? How many gallons? Divide. That's it. It's a mathematical formula. Okay, right? I needed to take algebra for that. For what? They have an agenda. The world has an agenda. We have to understand what the agenda is. And they're trying to convince you of something that's just totally false. Totally false. And it's a waste of money. Total waste of money, right? So there are a few issues here. One is the language barrier. If they don't speak English so well, plenty of people making money, they don't speak English so well, okay? Right? Their grammar's not good. Who cares? Because the grammar's not good. I'm not going to say speak like a truck driver. The person curse all the time and this and that, but there are plenty of people. English is bad then. They make good money. That's one thing. Second thing is, who says I need a degree in the first place, right? Who says this stuff is important anyway, in general? But they have an agenda, right? They absolutely have an agenda. They're, part of their agenda, is to bury us, to make us look bad. But they're not going to talk about the success stories. They're not going to talk about all these Hasidic men are making good money. Not gonna, they'll talk about people who are disgruntled, that struggled, and they'll say because they didn't have proper education, and this and that. They're not going to look at all the success stories. Certainly not. Right? But there's another issue. And this is really the crux of it. The other issue is, we said before, Bala Mea, Bala Dea. The one who's got 100, they dictate. So if they're taking money from the government, then the government is going to have a right to say, even if doesn't matter. We're not saying they forged things, they are fraudulent, they legitimately got money from the government for whatever. Doesn't matter. They legitimately got money. If they legitimately got money, what is their claim that the government is now sticking their nose in? They're going to say, come on, America's free place. We have the right to educate the way we want. Oh, but if they're paying, if they're putting tons of money in, and I saw, a bunch of people commented, most likely secular Jews or non-Jews, to say, look, billions of dollars over here going to these schools, and they don't even teach math. They don't even teach proper English, right? So they're going to say, look what these kids are going to become. They're all going to be living on the streets, right? They're never going to have jobs. They're all going to be on welfare. Well, I don't think that's the case, is it? Are other people going to struggle? Maybe. They may struggle anyway if they have a degree. You can have 2 degrees and struggle. And then one thing has nothing to do with another. Right? But to say, at least you got a better way to do it. Right? You got to step up because you have a degree. Big whoop, you got a degree. Who cares? People give it a lot more credibility than it's worth. Especially if you studied liberal arts. If you study liberal arts, you got nothing to say. What in the world you gonna do with a liberal arts degree? You'll be a YouTube rabbi like me. That's what you do with it. What are you gonna do with it? My parents will say, I'm so glad you finished. Okay, came in handy once. And it wasn't even. It was just something like so out of the box, and for whatever. And it came in handy. I'm not gonna say not. Came in handy once. Okay. It was just having the degree that came in handy for different reasons. But, all those hours, a waste of time. I could have been learning. Imagine what I would have been today. All this waste of time and other things. Okay. Could have said I could have wasted other places. It's fine. But the problem is, see, you have the Gudas Israel of America. They're going to fight this, right? That's something, that's on their agenda. They are going to, fight this tooth and nail. Okay, they should, 100%. But realize one thing. I'm a very big fan of theirs. I think they do a lot of great work, trying to deal with politicians and other things, to help their agenda and whatever. I'm all for it. But remember one thing. And the one thing is, if you're taking money, and you're taking government money, and I'm saying 100% there's no fraud, and it's legit, you have the right to get this money. Realize the second you take that money, you are now subservient to the one who's giving it to you. And now they could come and say, you know what? We don't like what you're doing over here. We don't like the fact that your students don't speak English well. So we're gonna, we're giving all this money. Come on, they don't speak English so well. Someone there points out, very funny. Someone worked with a guy who had a master's degree, couldn't fold up a cardboard box. You're right. There are people that can be brilliant in other ways and, can't screw in a light bulb. You have that also. But if you have to understand, that's why, that's why my Rabbi and everyone who follows, that idea that, here in Israel, they're not going to take money from the government because they don't want tainted money. They don't want money to desecrate at Shabbos, other things, to have an influence, let's say on their schools or whatever. So you know what? They don't take money. They don't take money from the government. They have to raise the money. And I'm sure it's not an easy thing to do, right? But then no one has to say. Whoever runs the school, they have to say, not anybody else, right? That's the most important thing, because you don't want people coming in and telling you what to do because they're giving you money. I remember someone once asked me about whatever, Norad group, whatever. I'm trying to build this whole thing up north, whole outreach center and this and that. So someone asked, well, if we help you out, meaning money wise, do we have a say? I said, no. I said, do you want to help me out? I said, you want to give ideas? I said, I'll have a suggestion box. I said, I'll take suggestions, but as I always say, I'm an enlightened despot, right? I'm going to call it the way, what my vision is, whatever. People like the vision, good. They want to help it, good. They don't, okay. That's their choice, right? But yeah, you can have a suggestion box, but they're not the ones calling the shots, right? And that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. Whoever's running the institution, whatever institution it is, the donors are not calling the shots. 100%. They don't like it, let them donate somewhere else. God has a lot of messages, plenty of messages, right? So we don't, they're not going to have to say. So the person was just testing me. What is, person wasn't asking to say, oh, let's see how far I can push him. He said, no, whatever. He said, that's good to hear. I said, great. Send me all the money. I'll do what I want. Not a problem, right? Not a problem over here. But it's the way it has to be run. The people in charge, if they're doing it right, they have their vision. You let them do what they do. You let them do what they do best. You want to make some suggestions here and there, okay. But realize they're not probably going to be listened to. Maybe they will be. Not saying not, depends what it is. Right? But you got the people who know what they're doing and what they're doing, let them do it. Let them don't try and tie their hands behind their back, and smack them upside the head and say, well, it's my way, the highway. Well, forget it. Right? Because someone's going to say, well, if I have money and I'm giving, I have a right to say. Well, that's not true. They think they have a right to say. In government, 100%, this is what they're doing. They want to flex their muscles. They want to say, well, we have an agenda. The Board of Education, how can this be? And this and that. But see, they're missing the other point. They're missing the other point, and that is, even if their English isn't so good, even if they don't have higher mathematics. So how do you explain, and this is what you would have to ask them, how do you explain so many success stories financially in the Hasidic world without greater education? Without, a lot of them, real estate, it's involved in other things that have nothing to do with having a higher degree. Nothing. So how do you explain that? You're going to say, well, they're lucky. How do you say tens of thousands of people are lucky? I'm not saying everyone's successful, and they're all billionaires. There are a lot of people who have money. Not saying not. Got to find some of them. A lot of them have money. I'm not saying people don't struggle either. But it's not because they have a degree or not have a degree. That has nothing to do with a degree over here. People say, oh, if you would have gone into this, yeah. People know if they go into social work, they're not going to make a lot of money. If they go into teaching, they're not going to make a lot of money unless you go into, public schools or something like that. You're not going to make a lot of money. In certain fields, So it doesn't matter what you do, how many degrees you have. You get paid more. If you have an MA or a PhD, you get paid more. Okay. Right. Are you going to make what a lawyer makes? No. You gonna make what a doctor makes? No, not even close. You gonna make what someone in real estate, they know what they're doing? Not even close. But they should be paid a lot more. Definitely should be paid a lot more. Right? Even with all the degrees, does it really matter? Doesn't matter. They'll say it matters, but the reality is it doesn't matter. Because God's going to dictate, it's good for Rosh Hashanah, God's going to dictate how much money you make either way. And even if you're making a lot of money, your car could go, health things, other things, right? So you end up making less money anyway. Doesn't matter what degree you have, doesn't matter. So if they're going to be the ones paying, I'm just throwing this out there. If they're the ones that they're going to be paying this money, they're going to say, I have a right to say. I have a right to dictate certain things, maybe curriculum. And what they're going to fight against, what a good Israel of America is going to fight against is absolutely not. You want to give the money, we have a right to get the money. Legally, we have a right. Who says you have a right to say anything about our schools? Who says? You don't have a right to say anything. Oh, you would like this and this. Yeah. If you're talking in New York, go to many schools in New York, see how their English is. In public schools. And their English is atrocious. Right? And the mathematical skills are even worse. So you're gonna say, wow, look at that. Wow. So what do you answer to that? So they say, well, at least they're learning it. They have other issues, whatever. Right? You can make any number of excuses we want. But if they give over the money, they have a right. They have a right. Right? Someone here says that they're understanding God's going to depend how much money you make. Right? He's the X factor. The example I always give in the Jewish marketplace here in Israel and Jerusalem, they all get their fruits and vegetables from the same place. So people are yelling and screaming this, that, my potatoes are number one, my falafel, my this, my that. So why does one person make more money than another? If they're getting all their fruits and vegetables from more or less the same place. So say it's advertising. No advertising. It says location. All right, whatever. There's an X factor. God wants this person to struggle. God wants this person to be successful. And then this person will struggle, that person will be whatever. It's all dictated by above. It matters what degree you have? Nothing. Nothing. You have to put your best foot forward. Don't get me wrong. You have to put your best foot forward. Is that a guarantee? It's not a guarantee for anything. Right? You can be successful. You could have a downfall. You could be more successful, less successful. It's dependent if God wants you to or not. That's the bottom line. It has nothing to do with degrees or not degrees. Yeah. Someone asks, one second here. Someone asks, how can you use talent such as singing, painting, etc. to serve Hashem? Good question. I think it's a mode of expression. Definitely painting is good. Someone likes to paint. For women, I think it's a little more difficult singing because you can't sing in front of men. Right? There are women that were very talented, made their own albums only for women, maybe gave some concerts to women. But yeah, in that sense, it's going to be hard. If a person really, wants to try and make money from it, it's going to be hard. I know someone that gave singing lessons, right? Singing lessons to girls. She's now a occupational therapist, but loves to sing. Husband's actually does weddings, whatever, accomplished singer himself. But so how do you use those talents? You can use those talents in different ways. Right? Again, women to get together to sing, they can have performances, different things. Doesn't mean you're gonna make money from it, no, but it's an outlet. There are many women that like to do plays. Certain communities every year or every 2 years, would have some theme, and someone would write up a play or whatever, and they perform. The money would go to charity or whatever. So women get their creative ways out that way, as well. Someone here points out that Yeshiva University was told that they don't qualify as a religious university, right? Because they teach secular studies. Yeah. Also, right? It's a slippery slope. That is true. Some say it's more university than yeshiva, but there are different tracks there. I was there for a year. I can't say I was totally impressed, by what I saw, but I'm not going to say there aren't, serious people studying there. It depends what a person wants. But yeah, it's a it's also a university. Very true. Someone asked, when I learned history in college, if it was biased towards Israel. The history I learned, I focused on really was World War II. It took a number of courses in that, but the other courses had nothing to do with Israel. It had zero to do with Israel. One was on, I can't even tell you how exciting this was. I took a seminar on Vietnam War. I took a seminar on the war between Athens and Sparta. I can't, in Greece, can't even tell you how exciting that was. Not that I remember, too much from that. But most of the classes I took had nothing to do with, these classes had nothing to do with Judaism or, anything about Israel. But there weren't any, not that I do remember. I did have one class. It's probably my own fault for taking it. I had 2 classes left to take. I took a summer course, and one of the classes was about New Age religions, and about New Age religions, and about witchcraft, other things, and most of the people that came to speak were all Jews. Unfortunately, we're all like, misguided secular Jews. In any case, I had to get the way you got your grades. Basically, you had to write a paper and you had to give a presentation. So my presentation came out on Friday. It came out like on a Friday afternoon. So it was in the summer. So even though Shabbos was late, I wanted to switch it. My professor wouldn't let me switch it. I'm not saying he was anti-Semite, whatever. He just, he wouldn't let me switch it. So I spoke about, anyone's ever heard about the myth of Atlantis? So I spoke about the myth of Atlantis. And this whole thing in different cultures that they have this, this group of people, they're on this island. They say that, when they got destroyed, they ended up in the bottom of where the Bermuda Triangle is right now. In either case, there's no question, like their island sort of, according to most versions, their island just sort of like blew up, right? Sort of like just got destroyed, totally destroyed. And so I got really, so I said, okay, this is an interesting topic. Let me do some research on it. And so I was really mad. I had to give this presentation on Friday. So I found, a few sources. One, I think, was from a psychic, and another source that, I wanted to prove, I want to try and show, based on the evidence, where they got this information from. So anyway, I was giving over this presentation. And again, I sort of had an axe to grind because, I had to prepare for Shabbos and whatever, and I couldn't get out of it. So I said, okay, I'm gonna have fun with this. So I'm going through the history a little bit, and I was like really egging it on. So, they blew themselves up, and how can it be? Where they get all this sophisticated information from? Not everybody like on the edge of their seats. And I was like, I was building it. And finally I got to the final point, and I said, where'd they get the information from? And everyone's like waiting. And I go, Martians! I said, Martians! And everybody just burst out laughing. And the professor said, you better have good proof of this. I said, I named this book, I named that book, I named, and I said I had a psychic who brought this down, whatever. So everyone was like on the floor, hysterical. And I said, okay, Kaufman's last, gasp at secular university. I passed the class. I got actually a halfway decent grade, but it was just very funny. It was just very funny that whatever, I threw that out there. But anyway, so yeah, none of these classes. Why I mentioned that, because it made me give this presentation when it was close to Shabbos. Right now, I don't think it was an anti-Semite by any stretch. Not that I remember, but I just got sort of annoyed. So I said, okay, I'm gonna have some fun with this. So anyway, I had a lot of fun with that. Muslims do have their own schools. They don't just go to public school, right? They definitely have their own. They definitely have their own schools. And like I said, any place that has a very strong minority population of Muslims, they're going to cater to them, and they're not going to force things down their throat because they know they'll burn down the city. And they know that. right? So in England, that never happened. Only yeshivas that they were going to teach about homosexuality and all that. That's the only reason, But in what do you call it? In Muslim schools, never would have happened. Never, because if they were to try to enforce that, that's it. They would have burned England to the ground. Yeah. Let me see any. Let me see. I'm glad people like that story. It's a true story. I mean, the question is how actually I passed that class, but that's I don't know. Yeah, I guess it felt bad for me, but I thought that was I thought that was a good line. It was pretty funny. It was definitely pretty funny. Anyway, yeah, I did pass that class though. Yeah, any so we have to be worse than that and burn down the planet, I guess. But there's an agenda out there. 100%. 100% there's an agenda, but we are going to shut down schools no matter how much money government gives. We will shut down schools in order that we're not going to have this filth taught in our schools, right? We're not going to go according to their agenda, right? And this doesn't fit our world outlook. You got to say, well, it's very innocent. It's just learning a little bit more English, maybe a little bit more science. Yeah, but that's not going to stop there. Not going to stop there. So they've been successful for centuries teaching this way. Yeah, that's our agenda and it works. So if it works, you don't fix it. Someone asked, do we need the state of Israel for the Messianic wars, Messianic age? No. There's a medrash that says that Jews aren't even going to be in Israel. That the Jews are actually going to be in the desert and the Messiah is going to bring Jews into the land of Israel. Now, I would think that's a little bit hard to fathom just the way things are set up right now, that we'd actually be thrown out of the land or spit out of the land, let's say better. But I would say that the state of Israel is no guarantee we'll be here when the Messiah comes. None. Now, again, if I was a betting person, all the money I don't have, I would say we're not going to get thrown out here, right? That's not going to happen, but anything can happen over here. Someone here points out, good question. If Muslims hate homosexuals, then why were they raping children? Yeah, they rape others also, not just people that are. I saw someone did a expose on that a little bit, just saw a clip from it. But they, all these leftists were siding with the Palestinians, and so this person interviewed quote unquote Palestinians and said that what he did to homosexuals. Said, yeah, we beat them, we raped them, and like these other homosexuals were shocked. They were shocked, like, oh, we don't support the Palestinians. They had no idea. They had no idea. They beat them, they put them in jail, they raped them, etc. They had absolutely no idea that this actually goes on. So, they changed their tune pretty quick, after that. So a lot of people, don't necessarily know that, but that's what they do. So, they're against, they're 100%. They are very, very strong against homosexuals, right? But then again, if they catch them or whatever, then they beat them and rape them also. So like, I don't know how one thing is better than the other. The whole thing doesn't make any sense. But any case, any other, someone mentioned that they were looking up stuff about my Rabbi and about stuff about anti-Zionism. Yeah, he lives here though. He's been here for 70 years, right? He just doesn't hold to the state, right? And what the state does against Jews and against Judaism and desecrate Shabbos and all kinds of things, right? So yeah, he's an anti-Zionist. I'm also an anti-Zionist, right? Many ultra-Orthodox Jews are anti-Zionist. Doesn't mean you can't live in the land. Some people will say they're anti-Zionist and you shouldn't populate the land, and live in the land before the Messiah comes. Okay, but they have huge contingents of people that live here, so it's also a problem. It's also a contradiction, right? Just because the person may be an anti-Zionist doesn't mean you can't live in the land, right? It's just you don't like what the government does, and it's an anti-Torah government, and and all that. But yeah, is he a big anti-Zionist? 100%, right? Anti-Zionism means you don't believe that the state is the ultimate state here. You want the state to be run by Torah law, right? Run by Jewish law. In other words, Herzl himself would have been happy if we'd had Uganda or any other place or Argentina. He's lucky he got Israel, but it wasn't about the further necessarily about Israel to the extent where it's about keeping mitzvahs. It was just about the land, but not what's behind the land, i.e. Torah mitzvahs, right? Someone says a good state is a good side of Zionism. You'd have to ask, religious Zionists. They listen. It's good to be in the land. It's good that we're being protected and we can learn Torah here and whatever. But these quote unquote Zionists, they're not really too many left except for cab drivers here. Even the secular ones who call themselves real Zionists, they have no connection to Torah. They have none. And if they would have their right, they would throw us out before they throw the Arabs. That's how much they hate religion. So Zionists, in that sense, is there a good side to it? I mean, it's a good thing we're here. But you know who the first Zionists were? It's the students of the Vilna Gaon. People make that mistake, say, "Oh, the secular Zionists came first." No. The students of the Vilna Gaon came first. They were here first, draining the swamps. A lot of them died. Draining the swamps and all that, and building up the land. But they were the first ones to come here. So, it's the fact that we're here. It's a huge miracle. Huge miracle. But if they want to make life much more difficult for us, no mitzvah to stay here. Certainly not. No mitzvah to stay here. So, someone says, isn't it bad to be in the land and not keep Torah? Right. Torah will spit you out. If you're messing around outside the land, punishment is severe. You do it in God's backyard, punishment's more severe. Like my Rabbi would say, what's worse? He said, I'm not afraid of these towel heads in Iran and quote unquote nuclear weapons and this and that. I'm more worried about what Jews who sin in the land of Israel, what the punishment's going to be. That's much more severe. Somebody points out, I heard that Muslim countries, homosexuals are not accepted. They're left alone. I mean, again, if they're out in the open, they're in trouble. That I guarantee. That they're in trouble. Right? If people know they're homosexuals, they'll just brutalize them. They don't even have to be openly outside. They'll just come in their house and just take them out, put them in jail, beat them, rape them, and who knows what. Right? Doesn't necessarily mean they have to be open. They have to be openly homosexual. Right? I mean, they had, people on the street. They asked them. What do you do with homosexuals? What do you think about homosexuals? That's what they said. That's what they said. Average quote unquote Palestinian on the street. So yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah, any other questions? Let's see if there are any questions here. Someone points out that, everything except Judaism is a waste of time, 100%. Someone asked if the Messiah used to matter as much before Christianity. They made it a huge thing, but we always believed there was a Messiah. We always believe that the Messiah is going to come, even though he hasn't come. Right? You go back to the Rambam and before, right? It's always the whole thing about the Messiah. Talmud speaks about it. Talmud speaks about it. Could be the Christians made it more in vogue today because, their Messiah coming back, but it was always on the books before that. Well before that. So I'm going to stop there. I do this every Tuesday and Thursday. We're going to do this again on Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, feel free. Find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman. We'll be on Orthodox Conversion Judaism. You can send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com.